Florida's housing crisis reaches a tipping point, but will a record-breaking 711 million plan be enough to help? And what the heck is going on with international real estate investments? We're talking about that and more today on Scale Through the Veil. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Scale Through the Fail. I am your host, Robert Bean, and today we're going to be talking about Florida. Florida loves to make the news, by the way. I mean, I don't know, maybe between Florida and then its polar opposite, California, which between those two governors loves to make headlines the most. Competition. Florida is going to be, we're going to talk about Florida's record-breaking $711 million plan to address affordable housing. We're also going to be diving into kind of the allure of what's been going on with Americans and investing in overseas properties. Are you prepared? But first, as we do every week, we got to tell you what the mortgage is going on. Larry, good morning, brother.
Good morning, boss. How you doing?
Doing all right. How are you today?
Good, good. I'm not hungover, but I'm tired because I've been partying with a bunch of loan officers for the last couple of days. We had like I call it a mortgage nerd con. So there's like 150 loan officers partying in Dallas right now.
That seems like a lot.
It's a lot. Loan officers are extra for sure.
So, Larry, I got to ask you what the mortgage is going on.
I'm gonna be honest with you. Pretty much nothing, right? But I'll explain why. Mortgage rates are on the rise again as markets brace for inflation, and what that means is we've been kind of dealing with the inflation thing. I mean, since last year, right? And because of that, that's of course making mortgage rates increase. Now, we did have the bank failure like a month ago, which kind of slowed the rates down, and like we talked about the pandemic being like an unforeseen natural disaster that we can never predicted, right? The bank failures we probably could have predicted if we were looking for it, but it was also considered sort of a surprise, which affected the rates, right? Well, that is now old news, right? We're not worried about bank failures anymore. So what's happening is we're going back to normal, as in like dealing with inflation. So if you look at the rates, it literally is the same exact number. Now, of course, this is a day-by-day comparison. If you look at the screenshots, so the rates probably went down a little bit since last Friday, but then it crept back up. So if you're like if you're looking at a moving train and you took a picture of Friday, you took pictures today, it looks like nothing changed because there was change. It just kind of got back to the same spot as it was last week, right? So that's why I said nothing much is happening in what the mortgage. And if you look at the MBS, it looks confusing. It looks confusing. Even our staff was like, "What's going on here? Can you explain?" And I'm like, "Yeah, those are the numbers." Because if you look at it, the price is exactly the same as well, $99.19. But if you look at the changes are different. So last week, the changes actually went 27 cents to 99.19. Obviously, it went down because it had to go back up 13 cents to get back to the same exact number, right? And the reason why this is interesting to me, if you really think about it, if the rates were exactly the same and the MBS pricing was exactly the same, then it kind of goes with what we've been saying all along. MBS affects the mortgage rates in it feels like almost like exactly balancing in terms of the numbers, right?
Yeah.
Prices go up, rates go down. Prices go down, rates go up in almost an inverse fashion. Because again, the rates are the same and the MBS is the same, which is kind of mind blowing, but kind of expected based on what we've been telling you guys.
I'm with you on that one. It's the correlation. And this is another thing that I feel like isn't really taught to real estate agents, but it's like interest rates affect your job so much that you should have a healthy understanding of how those things work just at a rudimentary level. Like, I guarantee you, if you go ask the average agent what the MBS is and how it works, they're going to be like, "What's the MBS? Isn't that?" I think the loan officer sent me something from MBS Highway. Right?
Yes,
And it's
yes.
like, it's not, and I'm not judging them because, to be honest, I didn't know to study it until I started doing this show a year and a half ago now.
Mhm.
Um, and then I realized how much I wasn't aware of, and my brokerage, and I've been at several top brokerages, so this isn't a stab at any brokerage. I've been at
Mhm.
several top brokerages. Not a single one of them teaches you about interest rates and mortgage. Yeah, they might bring on a loan officer, but 9 times out of 10, that loan officer there is there to sell a course or a coaching program or something like that. So their focus, and I mean this in a respectful way, their focus is more on the sexy stuff like lead gen.
Yep,
Most of the time, if you can almost guarantee that if a coach or a guest speaker is showing up, they are going to talk about lead gen,
yep.
and that is important. But obviously, why we do the what the mortgage segment um, for this show is because you do need to know
Mhm.
what are the interest rates, and from what we understand, and remember, this is our opinion, our interpretation of facts. From what we understand, here's why things look the way they look.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, your clients don't care about your lead gen, but they do care about your knowledge, your ability to provide them comfort and a plan. So, yeah. Anyway, let's look at the snapshots.
For sure. And just to touch on the lead gen thing, if you know what's going on, that will generate leads for you anyways, right? And it'll also lead to conversion, meaning like you're able to show that you're an expert and therefore they'll be more likely to work with you. So it's important to know this stuff, not just to help your clients, but to also build a business. But if you look at the mortgage rates, there is a little bit of movement, right? So noticeable,
Yeah.
more noticeable here than it would be on the 30-year fixed. Okay, but in general, the rates are up. Okay,
I do
and
see the FHA even took a bit of a hit too.
yes,
I see
and
that, and the FHA is usually a little more insulated, but it took a pretty steep hit.
yes, and when we go over like the highlights, I'll sort of kind of touch upon why.
Mm,
But it would be probably a one in a bazillion chances of all the numbers being the same from last week. It would probably never happen, right?
right.
But having one of them being the same from last week, that's something that you can expect to see. But in general, if you want to know where the trend is, we're trending up. Why? Because of the bank failures are no longer really being something that's relevant. That's the reason why. So we're back to what we were originally were experiencing since last year, which is inflation, 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 right? And what the Fed is trying to do about it. Um, but yeah, if we go to the again the reason why this is happening, well, again, it's because they're bracing for inflation, right? We're
So let's talk about that. Okay,
sure,
bracing for inflation. Have we
yes,
not done enough in doubling and at one point tripling, if you take from like the lowest side of what we saw in interest rates over the last, I guess, 3 years now, and now look at the highest side. So at one point we tripled
hmm
interest rates, and it was a very narrow window, but I'm just saying, have we not done enough by tripling interest rates from their lowest to curb it? What are we bracing for, I guess, is the question.
So what is me? Okay, remember I told you there's like two types of situations when it comes to what are the numbers going to look like.
Mhm.
Number one, a reaction to the results, and number two, a prediction of what the results may be. Right. That I think that those two things influence what the numbers end up being. Right. So okay, this just happened. Okay, this is what's going to happen because of that. These numbers are going to change because of this announcement or because of the bank failures or whatever, right? COVID. This is going to create it's a if this then this, right? And then there's like, well, what's going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? Well, it looks like inflation is still bad, so we're going to go ahead and brace for that. We're going to adjust for that. We're predicting that inflation is still going to be bad, so we're going to go ahead and adjust the rates based on that. So there's a lot of reactionary and there's a lot of kind of
So do you think it's
pro-actionary.
less, do you think I can't stand, by the way, hearing the Fed go, "We're trying to be proactive." when for the last 4 or 5 years, they've been reactive, if
Right.
not longer, but I'm just saying specifically. That frustrates me that they're like, "Well, we're just trying to get ahead of it." Well, you couldn't have done that before? Like,
Yeah.
no, you're still reactive. Okay, so let me ask you this. Do you think it's coming more from the housing, side of things, or do you think it's more of consumer, and stocks that are pushing they're bracing for inflation, right? Bracing
Yes.
for inflation.
Yes.
Something's, encouraging them to be prepared. Do you think it's on the housing side, or do you think it's on the, more retail side?
Retail side. I think it's more
Retail
retail
side.
side. Yeah, I mean, we're in a weird state right now because they're expecting some sort of maybe a correction, right? Or this is kind of out of control, but some kind of like people say there has to be a crash, right? The housing prices are so high, there has to be a crash. That's what people are thinking. The inflation is so kind of, I would call, out of control, but it's moving faster than average, and we're like, it has to fix itself eventually. People keep talking about a recession is going to happen, right? Well, it hasn't happened yet. Right, it hasn't happened yet. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of conjecture, but also a lot of like prediction. But it's so funny because it's like the chicken and the egg. The fact that they're acting this way is actually affecting what's happening in the future. So
Right.
yeah,
Right. Alright,
it's
well, let's
most
keep moving.
yeah. So inflation has been subdued for roughly a decade, and what that means is tolerable. Right? It wasn't a thing for over 10 years, and then boom, COVID, and then after COVID, it got out of
I
control.
mean, nobody even talked about, for the most part, interest rates. Like, even loan officers, I remember even just when I first started in real estate, it was actually pretty rare for a loan officer to be going out and being as competitive with rates
Hmm.
as when pandemic started, and
Hmm.
actually slightly pre-pandemic, but a lot of it came in the form of closing costs.
Hmm.
That's usually where I saw loan officers being the most competitive, was
Yes.
they were like, "Hey, come work with me. That guy charges you 5K, I'll charge you 4K, right? Or we have this special grant." And but I really didn't see the prominence of interest rate talk, and maybe it also might be my own awareness. Maybe it was happening, but
Hmm.
because I was not as knowledgeable, because I was not paying attention as much, that I didn't notice the conversations. You know how it is, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that's a statistical proven fact. Like, the moment you buy a Kia car, you start to notice other Kia cars more prominently, and then you're like, "Oh, where did all these come from?" And it's like, they've been here the whole time. So it
Mhm.
could be that.
Yes,
But what do you,
yes.
as a loan officer? So obviously you're talking. I know you coach loan officers. You run a team. You go to conferences. So give me your insight. Prior to pandemic, was the conversation around interest rates as frequent as it is now?
No, it wasn't, and the reason why is because again, it's almost like things were so boring and stable, right? No one was really thinking about race. It was just business as usual, right? And because of the pandemic and rates were to go down, that's when everyone started noticing. I mean, if I'm gonna be honest, guys, race is a marketing tool, right? Talking about race is trying to trigger a conversation or questions, right? But race is like the worst way to really shop for a mortgage. Okay, APR is the best way, but no one talks about APR. They talk about rates, right? And Robert, you pointed out earlier, like you weren't trained to pay attention, MBS and stuff like that. You don't have to feel bad because most loan officers weren't trained on that crap either. They had to like learn on their own, right? So the honest to God truth is, I would say when there's not a boom, meaning rates are not super low and rates are not super high, refis are kind of here and there, but it's not like something that's something you can depend on, right? And
Right.
the reason I'm bringing that up is because rates don't really matter. You know what I'm saying? Like when things are really high and things are really low, it's more like, well, where are you at in your equity, or how long have you had your house? That's what really matters, not really the
Yeah.
rates, right? But when the rates are low, everyone wants to refi, no matter where they're at, no matter how much equity they have, no matter how long they own the house, right? Again, it's a marketing thing, the way I look at it. So I think you're on the money when you said you didn't really see much talk about it because no one really cared about it. But now everyone's rate sensitive because the rates are super high. So if the rates are super high, well, I got the best rate because the rates are really bad, but my rates are better. Again, it's a reaction to what's happening. So it might be a little bit of you maybe not really noticing, but I think it's because we're kind of throwing it in your face right now. Hey, we have the best interest rate. Rates are horrible, not ours, right? So
Let me
that's
read this comment. Facebook user, by the way, drop your name so we can give you credit. They say, I think a lot of this is to bring in the CBDC. For those who don't know what that means, it's a central bank digital currency. In other words, it's government crypto. Okay, that's basically what it is. That's not sarcasm. If you know anything about blockchains, you understand what I'm saying right now. It's also opposite to what crypto was founded on. Just so you know, too. Literally, it says central, and crypto was designed to be decentralized. But that's a different conversation. Not all crypto, by the way. I want to be fair, but the founding reason behind it, which is Bitcoin, by the way, Bitcoin is considered the pinnacle. Like, sure, maybe some others. We've talked about it, Larry. There have been other digital currencies, but Bitcoin was designed for it. Leslie Clarkson coming in with that. That is, you have to give it permission, Leslie. If you're commenting from a group, it'll make you give permission to show your name.
yeah.
So that's why.
There's usually a link you can click and it'll loop you into the StreamYard, which will add your information in.
Yeah. So again, so this is to put it simply, guys, it's just a digital dollar.
Mhm.
It's a central token owned and run by the government and the central banking system. And it's a very interesting thing that Leslie brings up, because the rest of what she was saying is, so many people don't want it. And I think we can all agree. We know that the government is corrupt as heck. All governments, by the way. So I'm not even picking sides. All governments were designed to be corrupted, just so you know. I mean,
Yes.
that is what a government is, to control people through
Mhm.
authoritarian methods. That's why there's 100 different types of government styles and
Mhm.
regimes. So, well, the problem is, and why people might accept something they don't want, is people can't afford to live. That is a thing, right? If the recession doesn't happen, which is, you can take recession and just switch out the C for an S and a T, and it's called a reset, right? And throw some resets in there. That's what a
Yes.
recession is, just so you know. Recession is reset. And obviously when you reset, you lose all your saved work. Okay? And so that's what a reset is. If the reset doesn't happen, something else does have to happen. That is true, right? So if that's why it's a recession, depression, reset is the way that I kind of break it down for people. But if recession doesn't happen, then depression doesn't happen. One comes before the other. And then if depression doesn't happen, reset doesn't happen. Okay? So then something else has to intervene, because it's not sustainable the way that we're doing business right now. And in fact, I don't know if we're talking about today, but even BlackRock lost 36% on their commercial portfolio. Okay, something has to change.
Mhm.
Well, guess what? That is the perfect time, aka Nazi Germany. It is the perfect time to create and bring in crazy ideals that, up until that point, people said, you're ludicrous, I'll never do that. And then you can't put food on your table. And then you go, well, maybe we should talk about it.
Yeah.
And I,
Yeah.
I actually would agree with Leslie that a lot of this could point towards the central bank digital currency, um, and whether you love it or hate it, that's up to you. But it's definitely something that's coming.
Yes, and I want to bring up that Bitcoin, like we said, was not the original, but it was the disruptor. That's basically
Mhm.
what it was. It's the one thing that came out and actually held on and became something, right? So that's the interesting about this, Robert, is how the military always works. They let the civilians come up with some crazy ideas, let the civilians kind of do their R&D, and then they steal it for themselves or they buy it for themselves, and then they somehow control it now, right? So basically Bitcoin is like almost like a prototype of what the government is thinking about doing, but of course making it centralized, right? um, but yeah, it's one of those things where like again, crazy ideas. And why? Leverage, right? You said people are desperate, they can't afford it. Okay, well, now that you're desperate, you're going to say yes to whatever it is we create, right?
You know, it's so awesome. I love these conversations, especially because we need to be healthy in these dialogues. And
Yeah.
everything we talk about now, you might be like, you're getting too political, Robert. And it's like, okay, listen, you have to understand that the reason why the housing market in America works so well, and it does work well compared to pretty much any other country in the world,
Mhm,
is because of our politics. It's our policies, it's our
mhm,
laws, it's our
mhm,
regulations, or lack of, right? It's that balance.
mhm.
There's a show I watch called Peaky Blinders,
Yeah, me too.
and
I love that
um,
show.
it shows in that show, and I won't tell you where, and there'll be no spoilers, but it will show you the side of the vast majority of people supporting communism. Listen, these were people that were hungry.
Yes.
And someone said, listen, if you join my party of communism, I'm going to make sure everybody gets fed. Well, guess what? If you're hungry, you can't think clearly.
Mhm.
That's why if you're an attractive woman and a guy is attracted to you and he says he loves you, you need to see it in action because his words, he can't even think straight. Okay.
Right,
So you don't
right.
take his words on that one.
Yeah,
He needs
yeah.
to show you in action because there ain't nothing going on up there right that
And
moment.
and I do wanna add a little bit of history lesson on what you're saying is actually true, and not to get political, okay, so forgive me for saying this, but, the reason why there's a lot of Vietnamese Catholics is because they would go to the poor parts of Vietnam and say, "Hey, I got free food, but you have to basically convert to Catholicism in order to
Mm-hmm.
eat this food." So a lot of Vietnamese who were Buddhist or whatever, they converted because they wanted to eat. That's literally what happened. So that built the Catholic dominance in the Vietnamese community. So that's literally what
Well, that's
happened with the
that's been a
show.
big thing in American history too. We absolutely did gentrification and assimilation of Native Americans. Um, I mean, if you are the predominant force who holds what someone needs,
Hmm.
whether you agree with the philosophy or not, or the approach or not, it's in the best interest of that governing authority, whether it's a religion or a government,
Hmm.
to have you conform.
Absolutely, 100%.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Because, and that's also how you know it's not a charity case, by the way. If there
Yeah.
are terms, you're not doing
Yes.
charity anymore,
It's a
you're making a
negotiation.
deal.
Yeah.
And by the way, I'm not
It's
opposed to deals. I make deals with people who need something and I go, listen, okay, I'll make a deal with you. And then
Mhm.
I also do charity, but they're two separate things. All right, we're getting too deep down this
No,
rabbit hole.
well, it's because Leslie gave such a great comment.
It's
We have
great, Leslie.
we
Yes, thank
yeah,
you for that comment
yeah,
because I actually love it. I think it's a great conversation. I think Larry and I will talk more about this in the future.
100%.
All right, Larry,
Uh,
continue.
So a series of aggressive rate hikes, and when we say aggressive, we're talking about aggressive. Like the Fed is like actively trying to make something happen, right? But nothing has really changed yet. But maybe it is. We don't know. That's why it says
Yeah.
they may be helping, but we don't know yet because obviously inflation is still going up, right? Uh, but because of everything that's happening and on kind of the oddities like debate failures, we're currently in limbo. We're like, that's why if you look at the race, they're the same. The MBS is the same because we're like, we don't know what to do. We don't know what to do now, right? So they're waiting for like the new data to come out, the monthly reports from the Fed and such, to see if inflation has changed or not. And I'll be honest with you, Robert, we've been doing this show, at least you and I together, for at least 4 months, 3 months, for something like that. It
Mhm.
seems like it's not changing. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. It's like
What did I say? I
yeah,
said where it would be, did I not?
yes,
And
yes,
overall, I would like to think that I am in my 6.3 and my 6.75, roughly almost always in that range.
yeah.
Yeah, maybe a 6.9, but for the
Well,
most part.
yeah, no, we're at 6.67. So you're right twice because it's the same number as last week. uh,
It counts. It counts, I swear.
yeah, it counts. Bond shift focus from base to inflation because we talked about this already. Like inflation is the theme. It's the show. It's almost like the movie, right? But then the base is like we interrupt our current program to bring you this message. There's a
Yeah.
bank failure, right? So then there's a little bit of a change, but then we're back to the show that we've been watching for the last 6 months, whatever.
And
So
by the way, guys, I want to make something abundantly clear. It may seem like that's a good thing. It's not. When a bank fails, you're supposed to hurt. When you
mhm,
fall off your bike, you're supposed to get hurt. When you touch something hot, it's supposed to burn. When you turn around and you nullify those or you hide it, which is really what it is, you
mhm,
prevent growth and
mhm,
learning and change
and corrections.
and corrections.
Hmm.
So I just want to
Absolutely.
make that abundantly clear. It is not a good thing, and I'm happy to be refuted. By the way, guys, I'm giving you my opinion as I understand economics and everything like that. So I'm happy to be refuted, but I believe it is not a good thing that when several bank failures happen, we don't even notice. We should be noticing. We should have people stepping up and not saying let's bail them out, but saying how did this happen?
Hmm.
Why did this happen? And what are we going to do to make this more secure, more stable? Right? To be honest, I don't know why well, I do know why, going back to corruption, but objectively, I don't know why the government doesn't educate people on this. I would
Hmm.
love to, instead of have the president say, "Oh, all the people affected by the," listen, I don't need your empathy. I need solutions. I would
Hmm.
love for the government to turn around and say, I'm going to bring up an economist and they're going to teach you about how bank failures work. They're going to
Hmm.
teach you about these things. Oh, well, we don't want to risk educating people and in like speaking falsely. Well, first of all, if your chief economist cannot answer these questions, then they shouldn't be your chief economist.
Right.
That's like the general surgeon or whatever, right? What is it? Is it general surgeon?
Surgeon General. Surgeon
Surgeon
General.
General.
Yeah.
That's so close. It's like the Surgeon General. Hey, Surgeon General, let's talk about medical stuff. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't talk about medical stuff. I'm sorry, what's your job again? Right. So anyway, moving on.
So I was trying to let you know, like, she made a really cool comment. Leslie, she said, "I love watching the show. You can count me in every week." This is what I'm gonna tell you, Leslie. If you want to troll us and interrupt us and make us start debating, all you gotta do is make a cool comment like that, and we'll go off in
It
a
makes the
rabbit hole
show
for like,
fun.
yeah, we'll be on it for like 20 minutes before we can move on to the actual agenda.
Yep.
So yeah, well, you're welcome to come at any time and make any comments you want for sure.
Yep. All right.
All
Did we
right,
wrap up yours?
yeah, we're almost finished. One more slide
Okay.
and we're finished.
I lost track.
Yeah, we're done. We're done with that slide, but we got to go to the numbers now, so you guys can see what happened. So
Oh, too far.
no, yeah. So interest rate. It says interest rates went up by 10 points. Well, that went up by like 10 points maybe from yesterday, but they were the same last week. Mortgage-backed securities again, they went up from yesterday, but they are again the same, right, from last week. So Friday to Friday, boring basically, but that lets us know what's going on, right? Debate failures are no longer an issue until another debate fails, of course.
And then
Uh,
we'll all pretend like um it never happened.
yeah, eventually.
All right, guys. So that was what the mortgage is going on. Every single week, you can count on us to bring you just as best as we can, as much as we can understand. Um, bring in what's happening week over week,
Mhm,
and to our best understanding, why it's happening.
mhm.
And we love to take guesses, emphasize and underline the word guess on what's coming next. Okay. We're very
Yes.
open about what we know to be as facts and then what we know to be as opinions. But I'm going to always encourage you, because I haven't said this in a while when it comes to interest rates, do your own research, talk to someone local who is an actual expert, by the way, um, who studies this stuff, not someone who's like, yeah, I'll go look it up for you. And then that was the last time they had looked at it in the last 3 months. You need someone who studies. You would not trust an agent who turns around and does not know and does not stay in tune. You'd be like, oh, okay, like know your stuff, right? All right, we're gonna try something new today. I'm excited for everyone watching. We're gonna be taking something from social media
Uh-huh.
and discussing it.
This is new to me, so I'm
So,
surprised right now. I'm like wondering
so
what's going on here.
yeah, hold on. Let me make sure. Yeah, okay, we good. All right, I had to check the slide. All right, so question number one. This had 637 comments when we screenshot this.
Oh, I
Would
commented on this one.
you do a deal for 1% commission when the property is 1.5 million? The rest of it honestly doesn't really matter. The main question is, would you do a deal for 1% commission when the property is 1.5 million? And that means you walk away with 1%, not 1% shared between agents. Um, but so for everyone watching, what's your answer? Simple yes or no. Don't get all complex. Well, it depends if they're nice and or if they're family. No. Just a simple yes or no. Clean cut. It's a 1.5 million property. You're representing the buyer or the listing. It doesn't even matter. And you got 1%. Would you take the deal or not? Take the deal or not? I want to know. Drop a comment. Okay. We're opening these kind of fun things up for discussion as we go through them.
Put if you're watching this live, and if you're in the comment, if you're commenting, say this is what I would do, yes or no, and I'm live, or you're doing the replay, right? So if you're watching this as a replay, put the answer and then put a replay so that we know that either you saw it live or you saw it in the replay.
I also feel like we'd be remiss not to share what 1% would be. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
1% of 1.5 million. Let me make sure I have my calculator right because it's a lot of zeros.
I have to do it in my head, but I think I know the answer.
Okay, that's I'm counting the zeros here. Okay, times.
So you got two yeses. I don't know if they're
1%.
live or replay. So
15,000. 15,000. Okay. I just want to make sure I'm right. And everybody was like, this guy's an idiot. Listen, I never trust myself when it comes to numbers. I always fact check myself. Literally, I kid you not. I'm the guy who's like, okay, 4 times 4. Let me just double check. Well, here's the thing. I'll be more right than most people because
Right.
I'm willing to take the extra step to make sure. But yeah, 15,000. Would you be happy with a $15,000 commission? And again, clean cut. We're not talking about extremely difficult or extremely easy, just an average deal. That's what we're saying. Leave a comment, yes or no. I'll answer. Absolutely. I'd be happy with $15,000. I don't understand. If it's an average deal. Yeah.
Can I answer too?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I, of course, not a real estate agent. I'm a loan officer, but let's pretend instead of me getting, let's say I get 1% already, right? And you're asking me to take a third of that, so 0.33%, right? So my commission goes from 1% to 0.33%, right? Because mostly buyers agents get about 3% commission when they sell a house, right? That's what I'm assuming, about 3%. So I'm dividing this by 3. So would I take 0.33% of 1.5 million? I would say yes, because as a loan officer, the work is the same. The work is the same. 1.5 million and $60,000. The work is pretty much the same, right? Of course,
yeah, you'll probably have to work harder. Well, it depends on your market. If 1.5 million is normal in a market, you'll be pretty average in what you have to do. If it's a luxury, right? Like where I live, that would be absolutely a luxury. You might have to work harder. But at the end of the day, man, like, first of all, just so you guys know, like, there is no ad way to cut into the luxury market. You're not going to run a Facebook ad that's going to get you luxury clients. Otherwise, every agent and every brokerage and every team in the world would do that. It doesn't work that way. The luxury market is absolutely handshaking, grab a drink together, had brunch, friend of a friend.
Yep.
Like, so that's the other way I look at it is like, dude, you're giving me $15,000 and a key into the luxury market. Yes. The answer is yes.
So someone said that, to be honest, they would have done for 1,500.
I don't know if I could do that. I don't know if I could do that.
You sound like a loan officer now.
Feed me.
Yeah, but the truth of the matter is, I understand it makes perfect sense for a real estate agent. It's different work, more work, less work. I don't know. I would do it if I was an agent because you're going to open your doors to other 1.5 million listings where you don't have to take 1%. That's what I would think, right? You're swimming in a new pool of people right now.
I know, and people get worried about it. They're like, well, here's the thing. If I do it for one client, I do for all clients. And I'm like, you do realize that doesn't check out logically, right? I have discounted clients and did not discount the vast majority. And it's not been an issue.
Yep.
What, you think because someone who went to Walmart got an awesome discount because they were there at the right place at the right time, that everyone else, unless you're talking about Walmarts in Chicago, everyone else is asking for the same thing. Realistically, we show up. If we get the deal, we're happy. If we missed it, we go, oh, dang, I wish I got it.
Or you don't know about it.
Or you don't even know about it, right?
Exactly.
I don't, Larry, you have a bunch of stuff in your house. I have no idea what you paid for it. Some of
Right.
maybe even the same things. We have microphones, headphones, hats. We have all kinds of same stuff. I have no idea how much you paid for it.
Yes, exactly.
And why would I?
Right. unless
Right.
unless you are talking about it, like, hey, guess how much I got this shirt for? Guess how much I got this hat
And I'm
for?
still
Whatever.
just going to be jealous. I'm not going to be like going back to whatever company you bought it for and be like, hey, listen here, bucko.
You're right.
All right, let's talk about
Right.
some news. Florida's got a 711 million fix, hopefully. And we're going to be talking about lucrative overseas investments. So, Florida is kind of running into a housing crisis. And to be very clear, almost every single state, okay, is running into two very big problems for two very specific demographics. First-time homebuyer funds are drying up in five days to a week, 10 days max.
Wow.
We're talking about 500 million, 700 million, depending on your state, drying up in 5 days, 10 days. So we've got that fun. But what we're talking about today is Florida is struggling to get more affordable housing built. So they just passed a 711 million plan to address the issue. So a couple bullet points about it, and then we'll kind of just jump right into it. The cost of buying and renting a home or apartment in Florida has risen faster than in most other states. That is statistically true. Florida has had a surge of demand. I believe Florida is like the largest per pop capita or whatever the word is for real estate agents. Even it's just massive. There's a mass migration going on in Florida. And whether you love him or hate him, absolutely, Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, has become a media icon, and that absolutely influences people, right? Larry, who's the governor of Iowa?
No idea.
But when I said DeSantis, did you know?
I've heard of the DeSantis. Yes.
Right. And so when you're thinking about where you're going to move to, if you don't know who Iowa's governor is, but you do know who Florida's governor is, and you know to a certain degree, you kind of agree with him, how much more likely are you going to be objectively, right? Objectively, to move to Florida?
100%.
So it all plays together, right? You've got this guy who's become truly a media icon. Most of it came from his opposition to the federal government during COVID and pandemic times. Again, love him or hate him, I'm just trying to give you some backstory of why Florida's struggling the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
He's also one of the few governors in history, if not the only governor in history of Florida, who stood up to Disney. And again, love him or hate him, he did stand up to him. I'm not saying he's right or wrong. I'm just saying he absolutely went to Disney and he said, no, you can't run the way you've been running. You need to contribute to a more in taxes and other and regulations and things like that. Again, agree or disagree, I don't really care, but I would love to know your thoughts on it. So with that mass migration to Florida, obviously every state's struggling with affordable housing, but if you're getting more people than usual, you're going to struggle even more. So
Yep.
for years, legislators, now here's where it gets interesting, have diverted millions from the fund devoted to financing affordable housing, but then they go and pass a bill for 711 million to build affordable housing, right? So we've seen some Republicans have criticized it because they're like, we shouldn't be giving out money when it's already been mismanaged. Then we've got some Democrats have criticized it because the bill does not the bill banned rent control, right? So they're like, well, you're trying to fix this problem, but you're allowing another problem. These are opinions, guys. I'm just giving you like what some of each side have said about criticizing the bill. And while both parties have also said, well, at least we're doing something. At least we're trying something. All right. So that's kind of what's going on.
Just like the Fed trying to, help with inflation. They're taking some sort of action.
Well, the Fed's way to help with inflation is to print checks that increase inflation.
Right.
And then to go over to Papa Powell and go, I don't know what happened. We were printing all this money and handing it out for free, and somehow inflation went up. Why?
Why?
I mean, that's kind of what happened. And you know what's
Right.
even funnier is, so for you guys who don't know, Powell is still, though it is a private entity. Most people don't know that, right? The Federal Reserve is not actually the federal government, which is kind of weird that you can even use the word federal in it.
Yeah, it is
That's
weird.
really weird to me.
Hmm.
Whole different conversation. When I run for office, I will get that changed because that's garbage. That's very misleading, by the way.
Yes,
To be
yes.
honest, I don't know how that's not against marketing laws and
No,
advertising
no, no.
laws.
Yeah, we're not like as loan officers. We cannot act like we're associated with the FHA or we're associated with the VA. We cannot do anything like
But
that.
they can be called the Federal Reserve.
Yes,
Like, get out of here. Anyway,
yes.
okay, so I think it's pretty funny because Congress does go after Powell. They will sit. They'll grill him sometimes. He's also presented to them because
Hmm.
he is an advisor, right? He
Hmm.
is an advisor to the federal government. I think it's really funny that the same lawmakers who passed these bills that allowed these inflation checks, that's what many of us have called them, inflation checks. And again, if you like them, that's okay. I'm not arguing for or against them. That's the economics discussion. I think the hypocrisy comes that the same lawmakers who passed them are the same lawmakers who are mad at Powell for poorly doing his job. And I do think he's done a poor job, and I've been pretty open about it, but I also am open to being corrected, by the way.
Hmm.
If anybody would love to correct me and say, here's why Powell's actually doing an amazing job. And in fact, Larry, you've corrected me a couple times. You're like, well, hey, listen, let's be a little objective here. So I'm
Yes,
open to it. I just
yes.
think it's a little hypocritical. Like, we passed all these checks for our states to help our constituents to make sure we were still in power. And I
Uh-huh.
do believe that that's the majority of why those checks were passed.
Absolutely.
and and then they go to the guy who's dealing with their decision, right? And they're grilling him, going, oh, what was some of the terms? Uh, Lack of confidence and uncertainty, and like basically grilling him because he's what, not as good of a janitor cleaning up their mess.
Hmm.
Like, get out of here. Just don't make the mess in the first place.
Yep.
Like, all right, so here's some of the issues we're facing with Florida's bill, though. Okay. Number one, they've already diverted funds from this before. What has changed? Great. Here's $711 million for you to mismanage again. Right? That's what I'm looking at. Because it's already openly been admitted by the government. And a lot of this, by the way, was before DeSantis, because he's a governor, which means his time is generally fairly short. A lot of what we're talking about is prior to DeSantis. And then also there's things, and this is why you can't just look at the immediate person and say they're the problem,
Hmm.
because there are laws that take precedence that even when someone gets into office, they could not get it changed before they're even out of office. And so there might be things happening. You're like, oh, they're just letting it happen. Well, listen, if it's the law, they have to,
Hmm.
and they can fight it. But that's years in the process generally. Anyway, so they've already mismanaged funds. So it's like what we said with the banks. Why are we giving people who already proved to mismanage funds more funds? I don't understand that. My theory is don't.
Yeah.
Right? Am I crazy for saying that, Larry?
No, you're not crazy. It's a head scratcher for sure. Like,
Hey,
what?
we've diverted
Yeah,
funds from this fund before. Can you give us more?
yeah.
No? Like, no. And in fact, y'all fired because you didn't do your job. Like, this fund was set aside for this. Like, what the heck? So here's the other problem, right? It doesn't fix any immediate concerns. Nothing the government passes or does today will help anyone today. Okay? It it you have to understand, even if they can build more affordable housing. In other words, they get the money approved and it's in a fund and it's ready to go, right? The red tape's off. Well, go to a builder right now and ask them how long it takes them to build just a single family home. You're looking at 12 months, right? Because there is still supply issues.
Hmm.
There is issues going on with China, which, if you don't know, we get a lot of our building materials from China, right? You have to understand that when we get our logs and our wood from Canada, not all of it, but we get some from Canada, obviously. when Canada's facing inflation issues, that's going to hurt their supply chain, which then further hurts our supply chain, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if let's say there's 500,000 people who need affordable housing right now, it's going to take 10 years, if not more, to build that amount of stuff, even with $700 million, even if all of it was spent appropriately. Like not $1 was misappropriated. You're not going to fix a problem. So we have to, the reason why I say this is because it's very misleading when we hear, here's your inflation check, here's this boost into this fund over here, and it's going
Mm-hmm.
to fix problems. Do you know how many times every year we inject funds into affordable housing, education? Look at the data, though. It goes down. In other words, the quality of what we do when we inject funds into these artificially,
Mm-hmm.
schooling is not better, just so you know. Even though we spend more on education than we have ever had before. And in fact, in the last 5 years, we've spent more. Healthcare, every other thing, the quality of life has not gone up. The quality of education has not gone up. Go do some research, and you are welcome to fact check me, okay? I do my best, but I'm not perfect. But from what I have researched, every single time we have done that, the quality has gone down.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I'm going to pose you, for those who are listening. Whether you're an agent, a consumer, a loan officer, and Larry, I even want your thoughts. Should we keep doing the same thing that's proven not to work? And if not, what do we do instead?
So my perspective is there's probably more happening than we are seeing, right? There's probably no more discussions, right? Maybe there's a change in staff or whatever. Also, maybe being wishy-washy, right, is their way of kind of doing some research and development, right? So this is a very like we're comparing almost like black and white, right? It's almost like how we compare weekly rates when it's actually a daily thing, right? We're not talking about what happened on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. We're only talking about what happened on Friday and Friday, right? So, from my perspective, to be fair, there might be more happening than we can actually see. But if there isn't, then yeah, I think it's ludicrous, obviously. But I think there needs to be more research done to find out what's going on. That's my perspective on it.
I
Or you
think
think you thinking?
so here's another stat, okay?
Okay.
And these are the issues that we're facing. And I feel like the government should outsource this to people more often, because I think that every agent should be talking about this. And I think their clients, if you're in Florida, you should be part of these conversations, um, because we can figure this out, guys. We absolutely can figure this out, but we're not. We're
Mhm.
expecting someone, and I mean this respectfully, but we're expecting someone who's so disconnected from reality. And I mean anybody at the congressional level, the governor level. And listen, I'm not even saying they're wrong, but they are disconnected from reality. They are not living that life. You're expecting them to understand how to fix the problem. You're
Mhm.
expecting them to have the urgency. Let me tell you, someone whose belly is full does not operate with the urgency of someone whose belly is empty.
Mhm.
Okay. Here's another interesting fact. So, Florida added nearly 600,000 units with rents above $1,000, but they lost nearly 277,000 units renting for 1,000 or less.
Mhm.
In other words, they can't even, their affordable housing solution doesn't work. And just so you guys know, this is every state. It just so happens Florida, there's a lot of trending news, and that's why we're covering it. Every state is running into the exact same problem. So let me ask everyone here, what do you think we should do? Genuinely asking. There's a lot of smart people out there. Remember, the TV was invented by a 15-year-old farm boy. He didn't go to Harvard. He didn't go to Oxford. His daddy wasn't like, some tech tycoon, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so we can do this. So let me ask you guys, how do we fix affordable housing then? Because I think we can all agree there is an affordable housing problem, but the federal solutions have never worked. All right, moving on. Got another question for you. But first, Larry, is it news or noise?
I think it's absolutely news. It's one of those things where like uh it's a bad analogy maybe, but when you see one roach, there's probably 1,000, there's probably 1,000,000 roaches, right? When you see a problem like this, it's probably happening all over the place, right? The
It is. Just
mismanagement,
so you guys know, it
yeah,
absolutely is.
the
Yeah.
mismanagement of funds and weird policies and almost like you said, the hypocrisy, right? It's probably happening everywhere. So everyone should be looking into their own personal markets, not just Florida, and seeing what's going on in their market. What's the government doing? So I think it's absolutely news.
So what should you do next, guys? It's very simple. One, vote. I hate to say it because I have not had the greatest track record myself. I'm being transparent, okay? You guys know I'm willing to be humble and transparent here. There have been times where, like, especially at the state level, I was lax, right? But the reality is that the state level is going to impact my life more than the federal level will. And so, one is elect people that you believe bring real solutions and don't continue to play the same game that statistically is proven. Now, I'm saying just be objective. I don't care if they're Republican or Democrat. What do the facts say? If they turn around and say, we're going to keep supporting policies that prove they don't work, I don't care what side you're on. No, right? No. Because believe it or not, both sides play this game. And you can say, oh, one side, blah, blah, this, and one side that. Yeah, sure, whatever, whatever. Like, fine. But at the end of the day, your job is not to be emotional with your voting, it's to be objective. Look at the data, look at the statistics, right? And vote based off of that. If they've got a real solution, better, and they're the best option, then vote for them. Simple as that. Then vote for them. Right? Because we actually need to fix this. I forgot to mention this too, Larry. Remember I told you that was mismanaged funds that were diverted away from affordable housing?
Mhm.
You want to take a guess on how much has been diverted away?
Let's say 600 million. I'm gonna guess more than the number that they used.
2 billion.
Oh my gosh.
So guys, if you need a wake up call,
Oh my
don't
gosh.
don't let them do this again. And
Wow.
unless you agree with it. So that's what you should do next. Get active. Go run for office if you need to, right? Like, I don't know. And then um know your options for your clients. Know how to find a win in a market. They're going to see this stuff too and they're going to be depressed. But guess what? There's people winning every day. There are. Otherwise, all of us wouldn't have a job. There's people winning every day.
Mhm.
Go figure out how to get your clients a win while making a systemic change in the process. All right. Okay. Next question.
Oh
Ding, ding,
yes,
ding.
I love these.
This is fun, right?
Yeah,
Right?
I love them. Yes.
Social media question number 2. Share a real estate tip that you believe most agents aren't aware of. Ooh, I
Mm,
like this one. Larry,
mm.
I know you've got some, especially from your loan officer side. So everybody who's watching, drop a real estate tip that you believe most agents don't know or aren't aware of. Okay. So remember, this should not be your simple, oh, you need a time block. Right. So give me something with that. Larry, go ahead.
You need to be highly intentional with your partners and don't call them vendors. They need to be partners. I made a post a long time ago in real estate agent groups. I'm like, do you consider your lender a vendor or a partner? And the vast majority said vendor. And for me, that's basically a lack of respect, but also a lack of intentionality with your relationships. If you look at lenders, I'm just speaking for myself. I don't know about everyone else, but if you look at lenders as a vendor, you don't have an actionable, powerful relationship with them, and therefore you're losing money, you're losing business because of it. Your buyer is getting a horrible experience because you treat them as vendors and not partners. So my tip is to be more intentional with your relationships with your vendors, especially because I know you're a lender. So that's my tip for most agents that they're not aware of. And I know that they're not aware of because there's no loyalty, there's no relationship, there's no partnerships. There's a lot of like who's buying me the most lunches and buying me the most
Right,
dinners.
begging and
Yep. Yep.
borderline prostitution.
Absolutely. And I mean, I'm not going to quote anyone or say who did it, but I've actually heard that real estate agents has been called hookers and whores before. I'm just saying.
Listen,
Being real,
when
right?
I kid you not, okay? I kid you not. What I'm about to tell you is 100% true, and hopefully you guys believe that I really am objectively and honestly transparent with you. When I was doing I won't say which brokerage or anything because I don't think the brokerage even knew it happened. But there was a teacher teaching me as a brand new agent, and they said, if you ever want a free lunch, go tell a loan officer that you're looking to find a new partner. They told me that, and they said you could meet with them every single week. And I turned around and I was like, I laughed at first because if you think about it and it's the first time you're hearing it, it's funny actually. It's
Mm-hmm.
very funny. In fact, I laughed. I was like, yeah, free lunch, let's go, right? And then I sat down one time across from a loan officer who I was objectively, by the way, trying to find. I didn't have one at that time, so I was doing that. And realized I didn't want to work with him, but I had already eaten from him, right? I'd already eaten the food that he provided. And I was like, I feel guilty. And so after doing that a couple more times, and again, I was doing what I was taught by top producers. That's the only reason I did it. I realized that did not resonate with me. And so I changed it. And now I preach this, and Larry knows I preach this. Do not go to lunch with any of your partners unless you're going to hang out as partners or
Mm-hmm.
unless it's a business meeting where you're bringing a client or a guest or something like that, or you're working on a strategy, but not to find new partners. Because the reality is, this is going to sound weird. I hope it's not too inappropriate, but that's like going around sleeping with someone and having a one night stand, right? To find out if their marriage quality.
Mm-hmm.
That's not how you find out.
Yeah.
And you can't think clearly. And
Yeah.
so I'm with you on that one, man. Like,
Yeah, they call it dating, but I don't consider it dating. I mean, you're literally, it's like the women who go to bars. No offense to women, not trying to be sexist, but it's like the women who go to bars knowing that guys will buy them drinks, but they have no intention to go beyond that. They go to the bar
right.
just to get free drinks. It's really a toxic way of approaching relationships, right?
So please don't do that to your partners. You know, they are your partners,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're with you. And then if they're not, then don't make them your partner.
Yeah, lunch and learns are okay. I want to say that, right?
Oh, lunch and learns are awesome. A
If
group
you show
setting.
yeah, if you show up to an event and there's food provided, you're giving them a chance to get to know you, but you're not obligating them to buy you anything. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
But
That's
if you said
way
a
different. It's
yeah, if you
not
said
manipulative. It's not misleading. And by the
yeah,
way, it was set up on their terms,
yep.
right? It was
If you show up on a lunch where you both agree to a place and they're paying for it, that's different than them trying to entice you to come in because if they're serving free pizza,
yeah,
right? Totally different
I
story.
love that.
Yeah.
Lisa Hanner says most agents don't know how awesome the Carbon Club, W Income Coaching, and Agent Mafia are, and the leaders in those groups. Well, hey, listen, I do think that's a little bit of a secret that shouldn't be. So I'm with you. I'm with you on that one.
That's a great tip for sure.
Guys,
Yes.
give us some more tips in the comments. Let us know if you're watching live, by the way. And then if you're watching the replay, let us know the replay and give us those tips for us on one tip that you believe the average real estate agent just isn't aware of, right? I'm going to give you guys one, okay? I think this is really, really important, and I've talked about it before, but I think the gravity of it is overlooked and overstated and not comprehended. I believe that real estate agents can make the single greatest impact on someone's financial and generational well-being than any other person, including financial advisors, because statistically, someone will buy a home before they hire a financial advisor.
100%.
Statistically, they'll refinance, get their equity, sell their home, buy a new one, buy an investment before they ever touch stocks. And even if they do touch stocks, they're going to be more conservative. Nobody's getting a $300,000 loan to do stocks.
Right. 100%. 100%.
So I believe that. And so I think the gravity of what we do cannot be understated, but I think it is heavily overlooked. Nobody taught me just how important my job is.
Mhm.
My job's so important,
Mhm. Agreed.
unbelievably important. Oh, Lisa's coming in. I think the average agent isn't aware of how important immediate pain is when not doing the daily work.
Yep.
Man, Lisa, it's almost like you come to one of my classes or something.
she's a
I
great
love that. All right,
she's a
guys,
great
drop some
student.
more for us. Okay, Larry, we're gonna have to come back to this topic. Well, I'll tell the VAs, to my assistants that we'll cover this topic again. So leave a
Sure.
comment if you would like us to cover what is going on beyond our borders and how Americans are actually investing in overseas real estate as
Yep.
well. I think
Absolutely.
that'd be a fun topic. Drop a
Yes.
comment if you would like to know more. And then I had a third question. Okay.
Let's go for it.
Where would you purchase an affordable investment property?
You want my answer?
Let's
As
go.
close to my house as possible.
You know what's so funny? Is so there's some that are really biased like that, right? They're like, I want it close to me.
Mhm.
I want to be able to walk there if I have to. I'm the
Mhm.
exact opposite. I'm like, put some distance between me and the investment property because I don't want to be connected or emotional about it. And
Right,
in
right.
fact, if I can be as hands off as possible, I will be.
I would be the same too, but trust me, if I heard that something is being overflowed or exploding, I want to be able to jump in the car and get that fixed right away, right? Because
Here's the thing, I'm not handy. I ain't fixing nothing. And whether they're in Indiana or in Tennessee or in Maine, I'm gonna have to make the same call
that's true.
to
That's
an
true.
advisor and say, "Go fix this." I'm gonna have the same conversation, but I don't know how to fix it. I'm just being real. My wife is 10 times more of a handy woman than I am a handy man. Right? I mean, it's the truth and she knows it, right?
That's
Like
funny.
there's some things I'm okay at because like growing up I had happened to do those things, right? Like some
Mhm.
woodworking stuff and things like that.
Yeah.
Gardening, I'm great at gardening and because I used to do landscaping, but that was just because I had the job. But man, I don't fix doors, dishwashers, water heaters,
So
like
you're more delicate than your wife is basically what you're saying.
yeah, basically. Yeah.
Nice, nice.
Yeah. So I'm not the guy. Listen, I'll help you clean up though. I will do that. I'll show up and I'll mop. I can do that. I was a janitor when I was 10 years old, so I can do that, right?
Yes.
So, guys, leave a comment. I loved having these questions today, but what did you think? How did you feel about the questions and comments we did today? I think
Mhm.
involving what's being talked about on real estate is fun, and
Mhm.
I think it's a great thing. And in fact, if you guys see a conversation or post happening with hundreds of comments, even if it's controversial, even if it's political, drop a comment, send us the post, whatever. We want
Mhm.
to see it, and if as long as it's clean, which is very important, as long as it's clean, we might feature it on the show, and we'd love to have these conversations on the show.
Yes.
Sweet, Larry. Thanks for being here, brother. I appreciate you every week.
No problem, man. This is probably one of my favorite shows ever, so I loved it.
Probably, sir.
I'm talking about the fact that we had the social media questions.
Oh, okay. I was going to
Segment.
say.
No, segment. One of my favorite segments is what I should say.
I'm just messing. Dude, seriously, thanks
I
for
got
being on the
scared for a
show.
second there. I got a little scared there.
And just so you guys know, Larry and I don't make a dime off of this. We do this because one, we enjoy being sassy and dramatic and uh, talking about everything, and
Yep.
literally everything. But the other thing
Yes.
too is that we genuinely care about our community, right? Larry trains other loan officers, despite the fact that yes, he does want your business. He will also train people who potentially might even get some of the business that he wants,
Mhm.
because at the end of the day, loan officers and real estate agents are very distrusted, and it's not going to get better until we get better.
Mhm.
And part of that is information sharing, growth. So we do this show to bring you relevant information, to expand your mind, create dialogue, and to have a good time. So thank you for those who tune in. We really appreciate you. Larry, I will see you next week.
Appreciate it, boss. I'll see you guys later.
All right, guys, that was Scale Through the Fail. I am your host, Robert Bean, and we go live every Friday at 9 a.m. Central. I always have to double check because my brain, like, I have so many things that happen every week. I'm like, it's 9 a.m., right? 9 a.m. Central. We go live. We love to have you guys jump in live. We had a bunch of conversations going in the comments today, which were amazing. And we look forward to hearing back from you. If you're watching the replay, let us know you're watching the replay because we want to see who's coming in after and what they have to share, what they have to say. So without further ado, I hope you have a great weekend, and we will see you next week, Friday, 9 a.m.